Welcome to Soul Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest paths. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soul fire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soul fire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good evening. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and the third broadcast of the Joy, Resilience, Connection, 3 days to start a joyfulness practice that fuels resilience. So before we get started with the actual broadcast, I want to introduce one of the contributors to the book. Something that some people may not know is I didn't write this book all by myself. I actually have 10 contributors to the book. And then actually another contributor that I told her story for her, and then 2 people that I told their stories who unfortunately have passed away. So Marcel Allen is the contributor that is here tonight, and I'm going to bring her on right now. Well, I guess I'm bringing Marcel and Bettina on right now. But, we'll introduce Marcel first. And because Marcel can say it way faster than I can, I'm going to have her introduce herself and tell us who she is and what she does.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. It's such an honor to be here, and I'm so proud of you and the progress you've had and all the wonderful stories you've brought together. I'm excited by you. You are one of the reasons why I've gone into business, right? I run a company called Dreamosity. It's a social media training and management company, but it actually started from the story that I told in your book, which was about my own journey to really understand my mind and that chatter. And I think all of us, as we grow up and we learn to adult better and we learn to become more motivational than just frustrated or annoyed, we have to learn how to better harness our imagination and the words and our thoughts and those ideas that we have. And there was a season where I did not like my mind. I was very much against my own mind and my own spirit and my ideas. And I had this battle. And I think a lot of us go through learning to befriend our imagination and our mind and that self-talk. And so the story I told in your book was about my journey, learning to honor curiosity and to appreciate the power of our brain instead of just kind of be dragged around and dreary and frustrated. And so I felt that at such a young age, it was such a joy to learn about that, because I'm helping folks now talk to themselves better, because it's so important how we lead that conversation in our own mind. And I think it's a really important topic, and it's super important for resiliency and getting back to joy. Because if we're saying, hey, what am I grateful for today? And if we can get a flood of answers versus, oh, what did I do wrong today? Right? Those answers are going to come too. So we got to train ourselves to use our imagination and our brain for good. And that's where the curiosity part of Dreamosity came from.
Yes. So what was the title of your story?
Oh, I don't know if I could answer that right now. I picked it up on Amazon, but I haven't read through it yet, and it's been a while since.
Okay. No, your story. You called it Steering Curiosity.
Steering Curiosity. Yes, that sounds right.
Because so one thing I will say, add to what Marcel has said, is you'll want to read the story, because not learning how to steer your curiosity, as she terms it, can lead you to some dark places. Mm-hmm. So you need to read her story to find out about that.
Yeah. So if you or anybody knows you're listening, people going through a hard time right now, definitely check out Steering Curiosity in Kate's new book.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And I just wanted to let people know that there are, real people that contributed to the book. Even though I didn't ask any of them to come on and tell their story, because I want you to read the book.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
I will. You too.
Bye. So, Bettina.
Hello there, Kate. It's so great to be back on one of your shows. How cool is that?
It's great to have you back. Hang on, okay. There we go. So, are you live, or are we just seeing a picture of you? Oh, okay, you moved. Okay.
I know how to stay really, really still.
Yes. So, Bettina is the founder of We Empower Your Life, which is, it supports, basically it supports women to shatter the glass ceiling financially, earnings-wise, and to kick self-imposed limitations to the curb and live their legacies now. So you can't tell this, on the video here, but Bettina is only 4'9.5" tall. And in spite of that, she is quite a motivator and a speaker. She inspires women and empowers them to get big results. And whether she's coaching from a live or virtual or conferring with a small group of women or men, she uses very straight talk and inspires people to pursue their dreams. So I'm just going to let her finish up that with anything that I left out.
Sure. Well, of course, we are inspiring women, as you mentioned, but also bold men. And we went ahead and started welcoming men into our roles here at the We Empower Your Life community and the We Empower You membership. And of course, this is also an empowerment movement that we've taken global. And we have folks from all over the world on different continents and different countries, therefore. And so it's really exciting to be the founder of this wonderful organization, as well as a participant and a member, for that matter.
Yes. And so Bettina is, even though, she's doing awesome with her business now, like everybody else, she's had a few bumps in the road along the way. And she is actually here today to tell her resilience story. I titled it Learning to Pivot When Life Takes a Turn. And she's had a few of those turns where she's had to, kind of figure life out. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I guess the first one started quite a long time ago, or happened quite a long time ago. So I'm just going to let you, start out talking about that.
Sure, absolutely. And, I'm sure I'm not the only one out there who's suffered a few hard knocks in their life and been hit down to the curb and then just found themselves bouncing back. So beginning as far back as I can remember, pretty much in high school, where I met a boy who became eventually my abuser, and ended up being the cause and at the helm of the death of my very firstborn child as well. And so when you start off life as a teenager, basically, with those circumstances in front of you, and very proud, very much wanting to handle things on my own, didn't want to involve my parents or friends, was quite embarrassed about the whole situation, to be frank. It sets the stage for the beginning of what, was a bit of a nightmare, and would go on for several years, in fact. And I think that's really where I've got my start at empowerment, and the whole conversation of, going from being a victim and being instead an empowerer. I took a number of years over my lifetime. I would say I was even in my late 40s before some of that empowerment would really be a part of my life. And, through by hook and by crook, I managed to find my way out of that relationship, although there would be some other painful relationships along the way. And found myself empowering women primarily, as a nurse that I was at the time back in the 90s, and started just essentially, with just inviting women to join me at a table. It was Duke's on Green Lake, and that resilience factor was definitely played a role in starting something from scratch and making sure that I showed up as the best person that I could be. And I think I was probably born with that kind of an attitude that no matter what happened to me, I would always come back, with even better than the day before. And so, that mindset training, that mindset that I might have been born with, that positive mindset, has really taken me through a number of circumstances, death and dying and, relationships and you name.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone is totally born with it. We might be born with inclinations one way or another, but I think the environment that we're in, as children, a lot of times has a lot to do with forming it. Uh-oh, I think we've got the still Bettina now. Bettina? Okay, well, we'll see if she comes back in a minute. She's been having a little bit of trouble with her internet. She mentioned as we were getting on to the broadcast, so we'll see if she comes back in a minute. So most people go through not, I talk about people telling their resilience story, but most of us have way more than one resilience story. In the book, I tell 3 of my resilience stories, and that's just kind of scratching the surface. I probably could have told 5 or 6 other ones, and all of the contributors to my book, I picked them initially because I had heard or seen something in their life that I felt demonstrated resilience and joyful resilience. And then when they told their stories, about half of them told a different story than I had heard. So
I'm
Tina
back.
is back.
I have a little bit of a weak connection here in Austin, where I'm staying with my mother, and I hope that I continue to hold it for the remainder of the show. But if I vanish, I will be right back. And as I was sharing earlier, that there's that resilience that you can reach down into to pull yourself up, in a sense, by the bootstraps. And one of the things I bumped into along the way, Kate, you and I were talking the other day about, and that is this thing called reframing, where you take a set of circumstances and over time, whether that's a few minutes or hours or days or weeks or months, where you come to a little bit different understanding of what is occurring in your life. And so one of the things that I've enjoyed over the years is strengthening that muscle of reframing in order to be as resilient as possible in spite of no matter what in my life comes along.
Yes, that is actually one of the techniques that helps people to be more resilient. But it's learning it to begin with, learning that you can do that and that you aren't stuck in the perception that that we all, a lot of times, if we don't know how to do that, do feel stuck in.
Yes. And, one of the reframes that took me a number of years to get to, in 2013, I ended up literally having a lot of life kind of fall apart. I had been in an 8-year relationship that ended. I had asked that person to leave after thinking that we would be married someday. I ended up instead asking him to leave, and then I ended up needing to leave my home situation as well. And I literally got down to where I was giving everything away. I was putting everything on the lawn to get sold. Whatever I sold and whatever money I made, I was able to get a storage unit and put everything in there. And then I moved in with some friends with very little to my name and 6 suitcases. And within months, from about July to November, I managed to put my entire life back together again. And it just went up and up and up and up from there. And it was that resilience again, just taking those sets of circumstances and looking at myself every day. And in fact, the friends I moved in with had a home right there on the Puget Sound. So my wake up was like looking straight at the Puget Sound. And so July, one day, I have nothing to my name. I have to leave my home and go out and set off with friends. And then the next day, literally, I'm looking at the Puget Sound with the greatest view and the most wonderful sunsets of all time. And then back at it again, by November of that year, I moved out and I live in a beautiful apartment in Seattle where I have a stunning view of the Space Needle and sunsets as well. And again, it's just taking that fortitude, that resilience you talk about in your book, and turning towards, on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, even minute by minute, that power of now where where I'm actually just thinking about where I am right here in this moment and not necessarily thinking so much about the future or even into the past, because those really don't exist. So that reframing has really taught me a lot over the years. And it's something I use literally every single day.
Yes. And a lot of times, you mentioned that you were very young when that first situation occurred. And, we think of it as when somebody is very young and something, that they wish didn't happen happens. We think, oh, how horrible. But a lot of times that's actually a blessing in disguise, because learning those skills at a young age is probably, really part of what's allowed you to bounce back from things the way that you have.
Yes, I agree. And, you write in your book a little bit about this reflection about, when things go awry, and even the worst of things, being able to look back at them and think to yourself, there had to have been a reason for this. there must be something that I can garner from it, even if it's the worst of circumstances. And there even came a time when I would accept the abuser was there in my life for a reason, right? And he's of course now deceased, And I spent many years afraid for my life and afraid that he would find me and all of those kinds of things. But in the end, I have actually concluded that he was there serving a purpose in my life. And that is probably the hardest thing to do when it comes to abuse. And of course, in this case, he did cause the death of my daughter as well. But that also brought me to a place of forgiveness, which I was able to achieve, not forgetting what occurred, but actually being able to essentially forgive him in spite of what occurred. And all of this, leads me to being, not someone who's, against men, for example, which a lot of times happens to women. If they have one bad relationship, then they're, it's all men are off or all women are off or whatever their choice is. And I never went there with that. It was that person, it was those circumstances, and I didn't let it bleed out into the rest of my life. And, I still seek and empowered in relationship to others. And, I'm just leaning into what can I get from whatever it is that's showing up. Like I'm recently, COVID positive, and I'm not where I was intending on being. Right now, I'm living in Austin, Texas, have been for the last couple of weeks, still tested positive on Sunday. And you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm literally okay with it.
A little more time with mom, and maybe the cold weather back in Seattle.
Yeah,
is something you could
it
miss.
has terrible weather of late. I'm so glad I'm not experiencing that. And you're right. I have a little bit more moments with my mother, who's 88, and those are going to be fewer and farther between as she ages. And so it's really, a lot of it is just how you look at things. Half the glass half empty, the glass half full. I tend to look at it as half full.
Well, that's good. And I hope that you're, getting over the COVID soon.
Yes. I plan to depart here on Saturday and get back to my life and see what holds, there at that, when I arrive. And if it's not as I planned, it's going to be what it's going to be. And that's okay too. Life is like that.
Yeah. Well, as far as the COVID goes, you're not the only one.
That's true.
Another one of my guests, whole family got COVID.
Oh, wow.
Just in the last few weeks. So, and another person who was a previous guest on the radio show, pretty much all of their family got it. And just not from, going to any big social gatherings, just from being out and about. So, looks like we have to be careful.
Yes. And we're probably all going to get it at some point,
Well, at least it looks like it's going in a less causing less death than it did before, even though more people are getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even my, my attitude around COVID was, like, hey, I'm immunized. Game on. Come and get me. And if you do, I'm probably going to live. And so I did, And,
yeah. I think we still need to be careful, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'll be getting my booster when I get back eventually, too. So, but yeah, I think, back to the resilience conversation, that there's definitely a lot that can be had with just mind, mindset and choices, because everything about life and the stuff that we can say in our head, the stuff I allow myself to think, is really responsible for a lot of how I feel. So if I allow garbage in, garbage is going to come out,
it is really a process of becoming aware of that, aware of those thoughts that you're allowing to, spend time in your head. Um, I'll still, catch myself every once in a while thinking something that's really not a productive thought. And
Yes.
I'll just shake my head. Why am I thinking that? Why am I spending time thinking that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that awareness comes first, right? And once you have that awareness, then it's just catching yourself. Hey, what's going on here? I'm thinking like this. I had an interesting opportunity that happened. I know we have just a few minutes left, but I was in Costa Rica about 4 years ago, and I didn't realize that I actually still had a little bit of fear around rising up and doing something really big in my life after that experience in 2013. And it was just remnants. And I ended up having an opportunity to be on the beach and to be in the water and soaking and everything. And I had something jump out of the water and then jump back in the water. And I didn't quite know what it was. I later found out it was a snake. It was a poisonous snake. And then I realized as I was experiencing the fear that came up with that and not being able to go to the beach, therefore, and all of those things, that there is this thing that can come up inside of me, which is, I call it false evidence appearing real, where I live my life perhaps based in fear and not in possibility. And, I use that as an analogy when I discovered these poisonous snakes were in the water, but they had fangs in the back of their throat. And so they wouldn't likely be able to hurt me. And so therefore, the reality of their being able to hurt me was false, and the reality that I could go back in the water safely was real. And so I eventually ended up back in the water. So it's not that you ever get to perfect this. I don't think as humans
no, it's a constant learning process. Yes,
it's definitely there as and anything that occurs in your life like that. Ever since that happened in Costa Rica, and it was like a metaphor for fear, I realized, I have an opportunity just to disappear fear every single day. And one of my techniques for that is I'll just say to myself, stop scaring yourself.
Yeah.
If I find myself in a loop, like I'm going to be afraid of COVID or I'm going to be afraid of something else. It's like, stop scaring yourself, Bettina. And bam, just like that, it disappears the fear.
Well, once we master one thing, though, something else always pops up for us to master. So we're never quite done. That's something
but we can always build on, one thing or another, so that we can stay ahead of the curve, so to speak.
Well, thank you for being here and talking to us about this. And
thanks for having me. It's been great to see you again, as always, and congratulations on the launch of the book. I'm excited to be reading it. Of course, I got the advanced PDF version, and I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into the stories of the individuals that you've also invited to be a part of your book.
Okay, well, thank you, as I said, for telling your stories. And I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to them. So I want that we have a gift with this broadcast if people want to sign up for gifts, and that's actually a book. It's The Manifesting Mind, written by Stephanie Perucci, and it's in a PDF form. So anybody who signs up for gifts can get that book. So, and my books, they're available in digital form right now through Amazon, and they're actually on special for 99 cents each. You can get that price through tomorrow, through the 12th. And then the paperback is set to download on the 13th. So to get those, you can go to joyfulkate.com. And to sign up for the gifts for the book launch gifts, you can go to soulfireradio.com/gifts. And you can also look at the schedule for the book launch by going to radio show podcasts on the same website. So tomorrow at 8:30 a.m., the broadcast will be a toolbox for joy and resilience, and I'll be talking with Sandra Vesterstein. And she was actually my first life coach certification teacher. So she's been doing this, teaching hypnosis, NLP, and Reiki for about 20 years. So she has a lot of knowledge in these areas. So we'll talk to her about how those tools can help with joy and resilience. So thank you again, Bettina.
Thank you for having me. It was really great. Thanks so much.
And I hope all goes well and you get back to Seattle safely.
I certainly hope so.
All right. Well,
take care, Kate. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.